Trading doesn't make me tense. What exhausts me is the need to prove that I'm trading the right way. If you've been trading long enough, you know this feeling. This is not a how-to trading video. This is a story about freedom in trading. There was a time when I lived in New York, a small apartment, alone, enough light, enough silence. A few weeks later, I was in San Diego, a room near the ocean. Open the window and you could hear the waves. I carried very little with me, a laptop, a thin notebook, and a coffee mug that felt familiar in my hand. Some months I chose Colorado. Cold mornings, sunny afternoons, I would sit in a wooden cafe, open the chart, place a small trade, then close the laptop and walk outside. There were also periods when I stayed in a small town in the American Midwest. Wide fields, long roads, no schedule, no deadlines. People around me would ask, "You've been back a lot lately. Aren't you working anymore?" I just smiled. No explanations, no showing account balances, no trying to make anyone understand. Because I knew one thing: when you are truly free, you don't need to say it out loud. Financial freedom to me was never about what car you drive, what house you own, or how big the number is. It is the right to choose where to live, how long to stay, and when to leave without asking anyone for permission. I used to be very busy explaining. I work online, I trade, I analyze the markets. But then I realized if you still have to work hard to make others understand how you make your money, you are not truly free. Now I can sit alone anywhere, New York, San Diego, Colorado, or a quiet corner of rural America. Open my laptop, place a trade, then walk under the sun. No need to check positions every hour, no need for praise, no need to be someone. Just knowing one thing: I don't owe anyone an explanation. And to me, that is real freedom. If you say you're chasing financial freedom but still live with the fear of what others think about you, pause for a moment. Not to give up, but to understand. Freedom is not in the numbers. Freedom begins the moment you no longer need anyone's approval. There was a time when I almost disappeared from every analysis group. No trade posts, no shared charts, no market commentary, just silence. And I began living like someone who never needed to be understood. I remember the first morning after leaving the city, waking up at 6 a.m., no car horns, no phone notifications. I stepped into the backyard, sat under the shade of a large tree, holding a cup of black coffee, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to become someone. A neighbor walked by and asked, "Haven't seen you go to work lately." I smiled, didn't say much, because I knew if I started explaining, I would fall back into the old loop, wanting to be understood, wanting to be recognized, wanting to prove that I was worthy, and I no longer wanted to live that way. I was tired of explaining, tired of doubtful looks, tired of half-joking questions. There were times I felt irritated, times I wanted to argue back, times I thought I had to show people how good I was. But one day, standing in the middle of a wide field, a light wind passing through, sunlight spread evenly across the land, I thought, why explain when I'm already living a life that many people only dare to dream of? From that moment, I stopped. I didn't say anything more, and I didn't need anyone to understand. Every morning, I make coffee, open my laptop, look at the chart for a few minutes. If the market feels like it's breathing, I place a small trade. If not, I close the laptop and step outside. Some days I go to the backyard, cut the grass, rearrange a few plant pots. Some days I drive out to the suburbs, sit in a small local diner, order the same familiar meal, unhurried. Sometimes people see me during the week and smile, asking, "You always look so free. Aren't you busy?" I smile back. I am busy. Busy living. The slower I live, the clearer one thing becomes. No one is truly forcing me to be tense. All the pressure I carried before came from an old belief that I didn't have the right to live lightly. I used to think freedom meant making a lot of money. Freedom meant being recognized by others. Freedom meant proving I was better. But then I understood, real freedom begins when you're no longer standing front of an audience. Before, I needed people to admire me as a skilled trader. Now, I only need a quiet morning, a clear chart, a simple decision, and a steady mind. In the evenings, I eat dinner with my family. No talk about the market, no stories about winning trades, no analysis at all. My mother doesn't know how I make my money, but she knows I sleep better than before, worry less, and no longer carry that tight expression every time I open my laptop. And maybe that is real financial freedom. Not the number in your account, but the quiet inside when you no longer have to tense up to prove that you're doing fine. There was a time I feared that if I didn't share anything online, people would forget me. No one would know what I was doing, no one would mention my name. But then I realized that silence was the greatest gift trading ever gave me. When I stopped talking about winning trades, I had more time to call an old friend. No market talk, just checking in. When I left the noisy group chats, I began to show up in unplanned meetings, places where no one needed to know what I did for a living, and I didn't need to explain. There was a trip I took alone. No photos, no stories, nothing recorded. I walked along a river at dusk, ate at a small restaurant, and for the first time in a long while, I realized I was living, not documenting life to prove that I was living well. There were days I woke up late, rain outside, no rush. I opened my laptop for a few minutes, didn't place a trade, closed it again, drove home. That evening, I had dinner with my family. No checking gold prices, no market talk, just listening to small, ordinary stories. My father said, "Every time you come home, the house feels calmer." Financial freedom for many people is resorts, check-ins, things that have to be shown to others. For me, it's eating a full meal, not looking at the clock, not worrying whether there's a setup tomorrow. Because I know one thing, no matter what the market does tomorrow, I'll be okay. Living this way, the relationships around me began to change. I'm no longer around people who only show up when there's a trade. No more conversations that revolve around what to buy or sell. I talk to real people now, people who listen, who don't judge, who don't need to know how much I make, only that I'm living with decency. Once I ran into someone from my past. She looked at me for a moment and said, "You used to look tense all the time. You're different now." I didn't explain, because honestly, I feel it too.
The more honest I became with myself, the lighter everything felt. And strangely enough, the money still came. Maybe not as much as those who always have to speak up. Not loud, not impressive, but enough for me to live anywhere I want, at any time I choose. Enough to love without questioning whether I deserve it. Enough to help someone without waiting until I'm well off. And most importantly, enough that I never have to trade my freedom for one more position. There was a time I believed that once my account reached a certain number, I would feel safe. And when that number grew even larger, I would be free. But as I got to know people who had far more money than I ever dreamed of, I realized a truth that stopped me cold. Wealth is not the same as freedom. And sometimes wealth is simply the most beautiful cage for those who aren't yet steady inside. I have a friend, an excellent trader. In just a few months, his account multiplied several times over, but he couldn't sleep. He checked prices the moment he woke up, looked at charts before going to bed. Phone always in hand, meals rushed, always tense, like a string pulled too tight. I asked him, "So what's different from before you had money?" He smiled lightly and said, "Of course it's different. The pressure is heavier now." That answer stayed with me for a long time. If after making a lot of money you still can't sleep peacefully, then maybe you didn't buy freedom. You only traded for a larger cage, brighter, more comfortable, and more expensive. The farther I went, the clearer one thing became. Money doesn't give you freedom. Money only opens a door to a deeper journey, the journey of mastering yourself. If you don't walk through that door, you'll remain standing outside with a lot of money and a sense of never having enough that never ends. Some people have 9-figure accounts, yet they don't dare step away from the charts for a single day. Some have assets everywhere, yet they don't dare disappear for a few weeks without anyone knowing what they're doing, because deep inside, there's still an old need, the need to prove that they have value. I was like that once, winning often, highly skilled, and deeply afraid. Afraid that if I stepped away from the game for a while, no one would remember me anymore. And then one day, I let go. Not because I gave up, but because I understood. Real winning is when you no longer need to win to feel worthy. From that moment on, I began living like someone who is truly free. No recognition needed, no titles, no validation. Because freedom doesn't require proof. It only requires a version of you that is calm, clear, and honest. If you're chasing financial freedom, but still can't step away from the charts each day, still afraid of missing out, still straining yourself to make others believe you're on the right path, then maybe you're not truly free yet. You're just living in an acceptable version of tension. I'm not richer than many people, but I can take a nap. I can go for a walk. I can sit in a small cafe, drink a cup of black coffee without opening my phone to prove anything to anyone. And to me, that is real freedom. When I stepped out of the cycle where success had to be seen, I began to rebuild. Not from my account, not from my trading system. I rebuilt from the inside. Every morning I wake up a little earlier, not to enter a trade, but to begin a day without rush. I make coffee, open the window, let the sunlight fill the room. No notifications, no pressure to monitor the market, just me and one small question. What do I truly need today? Some days I look at the chart for a few minutes and then close it, not because I'm lazy, but because I understand this. Inner strength doesn't come from always acting. It comes from knowing when not to do anything at all. I write in a journal by hand, not to review trades, but to listen to where my mind really is. Some days I write just one line. The weather is gentle. The mind is calm. No trading today. And I trust that. No doubt, no inner struggle. The slower I live, the clearer it becomes. Freedom doesn't come from doing nothing. It comes from having the ability to choose to act without being forced to. Before, I thought freedom required a powerful strategy, constant wins. Now I understand, to be free, you must master your own mind. You must win on the inside first. I no longer hunt for entries, nor am I obsessed with exits. The first thing I learned to observe was my own state. If I feel heat inside, I stay out. If I notice the urge to win just to prove something, I stop. Only when everything feels clear do I place a trade, not with the mindset of someone who needs to win, but of someone who doesn't want to betray himself. There are weeks when I don't trade at all, yet I still live well. And strangely, those weeks with the fewest trades are the weeks I feel the most wealthy. Not because profits increase, but because I no longer have to trade my peace for a number. I meet old friends again. No one mentions the market. We talk about life, about afternoon sunlight, about people who once passed through our lives and then chose different directions. In conversations that have nothing to do with money, I realized I've never felt more free. Trading is still my work, but it's no longer my identity. It's a part, not the whole. And that is what keeps me steady through the waves the market creates. If you're trying to make as much money as possible just to rest later, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is there a different way I could live right now? No need to wait until you have enough money. No need to finish carrying every burden. Just begin rebuilding from the inside, a little each day. Some afternoons, I walk down a quiet street in a small town in the western United States. Sunlight falls slowly on old wooden rooftops. Children play ball at the end of the road. A hot dog vendor packs up as evening approaches. I stand there for a long time. No one knows who I am. No one asks what I do. And in that simple moment, the peace is so deep, I don't even want to take out my phone. No check-ins, no need to say I'm enjoying life, because I'm truly living, and knowing it myself is enough. Another time, I sat in a small cafe in New York, upstairs watching the city light up. Everyone was rushing. Everyone had somewhere to be. And I sat there, holding a cup of hot tea and thinking about something I had misunderstood for a long time. I used to believe that being busy meant I was valuable. Now I understand this unhurried stillness is what many people spend their entire lives paying for. There are also times I return to the suburbs. Quiet nights, no traffic, weak signal. I lie on a long chair on the porch, look up at a sky not washed out by city lights, and ask myself, how many people spend their whole lives making money just to live one day like this? For me, financial freedom is not luxury travel. It's not buying without thinking. It is the ability to live fully in the moment I'm in, without tension, without narration, without proving anything. I don't resist wealth, but I no longer let it haunt me. I earn money, I spend money, I invest, but I'm no longer a servant of numbers. Maybe I'm not as rich as others, but when I shut down my computer, close the charts, I don't feel anxious. No fear of missing out, no need to run. Because I know I've arrived where I need to be. A way of living where money no longer controls me. If you've been quietly listening this far, I believe you're on that path too. Maybe you haven't stopped yet. Maybe you're still managing, still pushing. But if inside you there's already a longing for a different way to live, then trust me, you've already begun to step out of the cage. If you've listened all the way to this point, I know you're not just looking for ways to get rich. You're searching for something deeper, a life where you get to be yourself without asking for permission. I'm someone who once made a lot of money, and also someone who once collapsed over things that seemed very small. Today, I still trade, but not to prove anything, not to be famous, not to convince anyone. I trade to preserve a slower rhythm of life, a morning cup of coffee, a simple chart, a day without pressure, a night of good sleep, and a heart that no longer has to tense up. If you need a place to pause after all the noise out there, this trading psychology